like to welcome you again here to our weekend masses. This weekend we celebrate All Saints' Day. So it's a great liturgical treat to celebrate this solemnity on a Sunday. So All Saints' Day takes the place of the 31st Sunday of Ordinary Time. Let me begin again with a joke from the book, Pretty Good Joke Book. This guy goes into his barber and he's all excited. He says, I'm going to go to Rome. I'm flying on Alitalia and staying at the Rome Hilton, and I'm going to see the Pope. The barber says, Alitalia is a terrible airline. The Roman Hilton is a dump. And when you see the Pope, you'll probably be standing in back of about 10,000 people. So the guy goes to Rome and comes back. His barber asks, how was it? Great, he says. Alitalia was a wonderful airline. The hotel was great, and I got to meet the Pope. You met the Pope? Said the barber. I bent down to kiss the Pope's ring. And what did he say? The Pope said, where did you get that crummy haircut? As I mentioned, today we celebrate All Saints' Day. This feast has its origin in the dedication of the Roman Pantheon as a Christian church. The Roman Pantheon, of course, was a temple dedicated to the Roman gods and goddesses. And in the early days, I believe about the 8th century or so, the Roman Pantheon was dedicated as a church in honor of the Blessed Virgin Mary and all the martyrs. So liturgical historians speculate that that's the origin of All Saints' Day. So how wonderful it is to celebrate this solemnity on this Sunday. I'm continuing my 5-part series on trusting God. Today, we look at trusting God in our calling, in our job. Last week, we heard about trusting God in marriage and family. The week before was the challenge of trusting God in prayer, to pray for at least 10 minutes a day and to be faithful to that. Well, how wonderful it is to talk about trusting God in our calling, especially on All Saints' Day. When we look at the saints, we see that they were in many different callings. For example, St. Louis was a king. St. Elizabeth of Hungary was a queen. St. Isidore was a farmer. St. Anne was a housewife. St. John Vianney was a priest. St. Thomas Aquinas was a professor. So we have people of all different callings, all different jobs represented in the communion of saints. And I have a great fondness for All Saints' Day because when I was a senior in high school, I went to my parish priest and I asked him if I could be a lector at Mass. He was delighted that I had asked, especially being a teenager. So Father handed me a missalette and he said, well, let's do a little rehearsal. So he pointed to a reading and he said, read this for me. So I proudly stood up and I said, a reading from the book of Job. And he said, it's pronounced Job. And certainly I was mortified by my first error in reading. But I must have passed because eventually I was a reader. But the very first time I read in my home parish was on All Saints' Day. So that first reading from Revelation, that second reading from 1 John, I read publicly in church when I was a senior. So again, another fondness for this day for me. We trust God in our job, in our calling. You know, God has a plan for you. God has a plan for me. So remember that when you get up day after day after day and go to work. You know, it might seem dull, it might seem humdrum, but really your work matters. So the challenge is to work with excellence. Even if your job is dull or boring, or you're frustrated, you think, well, what am I doing here? Remember that God has placed you there for some reason, for some purpose. Even if, as I said, you don't like what you're doing, remember that what you're doing can help you to gain skills to find something else. There might be another door or window that will open for you. So again, trust God in that. Even if your job, as I said, is dull or humdrum, at least, as we will hear in our cameo speaker in a moment, at least it pays the bills. And at least in the short term, you can learn as much as you can on your job. Because, again, your work matters, and God, in His goodness, has given you that job. So just be grateful that you have a job and to learn as best as you can from that job. I remember my very first job was a stock boy at Kmart. Again, junior or senior in high school. And certainly I knew that I would not be a stock boy for my whole life, but at least I learned how to be punctual. I learned responsibility. I learned diligence. I learned how to organize the shelves. And it certainly was hard work. As a stock boy, we had to clean out the furnace. We had to clean out the grease traps. So it certainly was a very dirty type of job. But again, it gave me skills for the future. After doing work at Kmart for a while, my next job was a security guard. I was a security guard at the old Heil Company on 4th and Oklahoma Avenue. And again, what I learned at Kmart helped me there. Obviously being punctual, the responsibility. Obviously now as a security guard, you had to be watchful and on your toes in case of intruders or a fire or bursted pipes or whatever it might be. And eventually I was transferred from the Heil Company to the Laddish Company in Cudahy. My transfer came with a promotion to the rank of sergeant. So my mom very proudly sewed my stripes on my blue uniform, and once again I learned much responsibility, organization, and personnel skills, so that it eventually led me in my vocation to the seminary and to the priesthood, and eventually here to St. John Vianney. So whatever we do, we are always learning, so we continue to trust God in that. Diane Fowler Scott is going to speak now for a few moments about her trust in God, in her job, and all the ups and downs and twists and turns that she had in her life of employment.
Both my career path and spiritual journey started out rocky. I dabbled in both, and like many young people, I had a chaotic family life, competing priorities, and a busy schedule which offered little time for God or myself. I did have a burning desire in my heart that I believed would change my life, and I spent 18 years chasing my college degree. When I finally achieved that goal, I was 36 years old, divorced, and had 3 teenagers, a rocky path, and a limited view of my own life potential. I was offered a job in executive recruiting, and I had no idea what I was doing or where it would lead me, but it paid the bills, and I struggled and persisted and somehow survived. I listened, I learned, and I grew, and then I thrived. In 2006, I decided to start my own executive recruiting firm. I was now financially secure, but emotionally and spiritually depleted. I hadn't had a conversation with God in a long time, but in 2008, stocks were plummeting and corporations were reducing their headcounts. Unemployment was spiraling, and my clients called me in a panic. Recruiting, like my spiritual life, was momentarily dead. I went from hero to zero in just 1 year. I now had no job, no income, and little hope. I felt a bit self-indulgent as I explained to my family that I felt a calling to go back to school, but I did go, and in 2011 completed my master's degree in adult education and leadership. The economy started to recover, and a former client asked me to come back to recruiting. So my first conversation with God is, "Oh dear God, why did I waste so much time and money going back to school?" Like many people in this turbulent economy, I was now doing the same job for half the pay. About the same time, a friend pulled me into her women's Bible study at the local church. I saw it as an opportunity to reconnect yet again with my God, who sometimes felt so far away and distant. And on the last day of class, a woman in our group pulled me aside. She shared with me that she was really glad I had joined this class, and she handed me a small plaque. She said, "Someone gave this to me when I needed it, and I believe that I'm supposed to give it to you." And it still sits on my desk today, and this is what it says. It reads, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you hope and a future, and you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Jeremiah 29:11-13. It was a small thing, but it had a place of honor in my life. Her gesture had impacted my life more than she will ever know. And as I reflect on how my career and my spiritual life have been connected, this is what I discovered in my heart. Everywhere I go and everywhere I turn, God has placed a person of meaning in my life. They have shared their faith, their joys, their struggles, and their prayers with me. I sometimes don't always listen, but sometimes we go to the backyard and pull weeds. Sometimes it's over coffee and muffins, but these simple acts invite me to walk along their path, to share their lives, their challenges, and their faith for a moment in time. In hindsight, it is so evident that they were witnessing to me. They were charged with softening my views and changing my perspectives, and it was their role to strengthen and prepare me for the next leg of my journey. In 2014, I would meet the man that was charged with changing the second half of my life. He brought me deeper into his faith, and he helped me to give a voice to my own. We were married in 2016. My life, my career, and my spiritual focus have shifted, and I have leaned in over the last 6 years to become an active and present member of St. John Vianney Parish. While it always hasn't been clear to me, and at some points there have been deserts and detours, there was always a plan. And today I have a calling, and I'm using my talents and my gifts as a coach and career consultant. I use my recruiting knowledge, leadership development, and love of stories to change people's lives with purpose, one person at a time. I am able to offer career coaching and life direction to individuals who have lost their jobs and often their hope in this most economic recent downturn. I have a career that I am passionate about, doing a job that I love, and I have the awesome ability to create lasting change in people's lives, and I am making a difference. I could not do this job without the journey that I have traveled, because there's been many deserts, detours, and challenges along the way. And recalling those moments, I was often tired, weary, lonely. But looking back, there was always someone there, someone charged with leading me back and lifting me up. I have come to recognize the many faces of Jesus Christ in my life. They have been a witness to my success and failure, my joys and my sorrows. Today, he shows up daily in my marriage, my family life, my friendships, and my job. For as each of you are a witness to me, I in turn am able to witness to others. Fear not, for God has a plan for you, plans to give you hope and a future. It will take a lot of heart and hard work, but when you are ready, the next bold steps in your journey will appear. As God reminds us through the prophet Jeremiah, you will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart.
Are we ready?
I'd like to thank Diane Scott for her vulnerability, for her courage and openness to share with all of us here today. By the way, Diane Scott is the spouse of our parish trustee, Robert Scott. So we continue to know that God has a plan for us, that even if we're frustrated, we know that we can learn things to help us in the future, and to be thankful to God for at least having a job. Next week, I'm going to talk about trusting God in our giving. God bless you.